This morning's invocation is from Julia Ward Howe. This invocation was originally about war, but Nathan has selected the parts that seem like they might apply to today's pandemic. It reads, "Women no longer need be made a party to proceedings which fill the globe with grief and horror. Despite the assumption of physical force, the mother has a sacred and commanding word to say to the sons who owe their lives to her suffering. That word should now be heard and answered as never before. Arise then, Christian women of this day, arise all women who have hearts. Whether your baptism be that of water or of tears, say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience." And now, if you will, join us for our first hymn, "This Old World."
This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family. We're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said now, love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. This our sum of human labor, true for me and true for you.
So welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. I hope that you can find us. We are, if you are watching us on YouTube, it's recorded. So I'm glad you found us. If you were watching us live, we're not on YouTube because we have some stuff we're trying to we did not make the proper offering to the Zoom and YouTube gods. And so as a member of the cloth, I officially apologize to you that our offerings were not sufficient, but we will get there. If you would like a stone placed, or if you would like in on this church's email list to find out the links to things, 504-334-8034. 504-334-8034. Glad that you're with us today. It's a good day to be together. Welcome to this church.
For our lesson this morning, this is the Reverend Joel Miller, and there we go. Took a while to get spotlighted here. For our lesson this morning, we're celebrating the installation of the new Board of Trustees. This is one of the most interesting tech days I've ever had. Look at that. You could see my kitchen here in a minute. I can hardly wait till we're back in the church. So there's a lot of lessons happening in this moment. One of them is in forbearance of the unexpected, which is always a good characteristic for any board of trustees to have. We're installing some new officers to the board, which makes it a new board of trustees. And so this morning, as we recognize that new board, install them and send them into this next year of your congregation's ministry and your experience together as a congregation of transition, I first want to show you a recording that your trustees made for you and to introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Adam Voss. I've been a member of the Unitarian Church for 5 years already. And when I was asked what I love about the church, I had a branches group reading come up that answer that question for me. It reads, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And that's what the Unitarian Church feels like it does. I see people being seen and heard, and that's what I love about the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. Thanks.
My name is Leslie Grover, and one of the things I love about this church is how we love each other.
Hi, my name is Edward Allums. I've been a member of the Unitarian Church for a little over 10 years, and I'm a current member of the Board of Directors. I think the main reason I like attending the Unitarian Church is they are more in line with my philosophies and ideals on life. In other words, I like to live by the golden rule, and that is what I witness every time I attend the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge.
Good morning. My name is Mijah Thompson, and what I love about our church is a sense of love and support I feel today as I did 30 years ago when I first came.
Good morning. My name is Donna Yelverton, and I love this church because you accept me exactly the way I am while inspiring me to try to get even better.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Gilbert. I am excited to start my second year representing you as a member of the board of the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. I I think that one of the things that I love the most is one of the things that I'm missing the most recently, coming in and being a part of the community, which in its virtual sense is not quite the same. But anyways, I miss everybody, and I hope to see you in actual person very soon.
Hi, this is Adam Voss. I've been a member of the Unitarian Church for 5 years already.
And so for our, we give thanks for those who decided to and agreed to serve their congregation, accepted nominations, accepted and taken on the mantle of leadership in the election by their fellow members of the congregation. May the year that they have ahead, leading all of you, be one of strength, of courage, and forbearance for all the surprises that life has to offer, especially in these times. Amen. So be it. We place stones as a part of our worship celebration. If you still have a stone to share, you can still text it to 504-334-8034. We place a stone this morning. Shelley places a stone for passing of her father. Carrie, Annabelle, and William. Jim Nichols. For all who have lost mothers in this past year. Vicki Berry continues to heal. For Ethel Susan Tillman. Baby Arthur, Rachel and Cole. For Leah, her lovely music. Maria, and she says goodbye to her mother. For this church, getting through the pandemic. For Douglas and all of his friends, he misses you. For the new members of the board. For AP tests coming up. Dawn and JT, 15th wedding anniversary. For mothers. For little Richard. For mothers far away. And a stone for all of us here. In the depth of sharing of our lives, we bless ourselves, we bless each other, and we bless life. We light our chalice with hope to make this a better world. We light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love. For all that dwell below the skies, Let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung. Through every land, by every tongue.
And so it's Mother's Day. Probably one of the weirdest Mother's Days that many of us have faced. So today I have, before we really get into this, my usual Mother's Day, Father's Day ministers qualifiers. Those of you who've been around probably have already heard this, but a lot of ministers hate preaching on Mother's and Father's Day. It's a no-win situation. If you preach about how great mothers are, you're leaving out everyone who feels inadequate as a mother and everyone who has a strained or estranged or abusive relationship with their mother. If you generalize mothering to all of the hyper-gendered characterizations of mothering, so nurturing, loving, all of that, you exclude all the people who aren't female, who are nurturing and loving, and all the mothers whose skills, while they exclude nurturing and loving, are still excellent mothers, are also left out. You also exclude all those who want to be mothers but can't, either through circumstance or physiology. You exclude all those who have decided not to be mothers. Also, it excludes single fathers, gay men, people who are genderqueer. And also, for many people, this is a sad day. For some of you, this is your first Mother's Day without a mother or a grandmother. So anything that sounds too effusive will lead some of you out and may lead some of you further into grief. If, however, you don't talk about the day, then the exclusion is more glaring if you mention it. So there's no way to do this well. So welcome to our, we're going to try and do this okay day. Today I want to use the example of life before and after a child as an illustration of this Sunday's theme. I decided today we should talk about a better new normal. Instead of using Mother's Day to talk about relationships between parents and children, instead I want to use Mother's Day in its original sense, the Unitarian Julia Ward Howe, the way she intended it, a time for mothers to demand more out of this world. So please come into this service however you need to. If you're exhausted, be exhausted. If you're lonely, be lonely. If you're angry, be angry. However you are, be that right now with us. I invite you to sing. It's number 86 if you've ordered a hymnal. Or you could find the link on the email. This is 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. Please sing.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
This poem is entitled, Do Not Make Grief Your God by Mahogany L. Brown. Instead, make it a cup of coffee. The espresso percolator wheezing on the biggest eye of the stove. Consider the dress. Line up every spark you own and weep at its small finalities. Hold each piece of silk and cotton like the gone love, hero, heart. Name the garment. Please give grief a name. Then fold it origami Place it kindly in a home suitable for royal themes. Text every contact in your cell phone. I love you. I love you. I love you. 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 Try this same exercise with your email inbox. Spam with such correspondence. Each item will bounce back with your declaration in the subject line. I love you. I love you. I love you. 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 Glorious chant of remembrance. Praise the ability to feel this deep. The goldfish, the grandparent, the ball player, the children detained, the spoiled water, the sewer spilled government, the son, the daughter, the bullet, the gift of ghosting, the promise of no more, the mother, the father, the empty womb, the empty heart, the desert branch throat clenching tightly, a name no one will speak. On the third day, pull yourself out of bed. Wake with a start. Can you feel death's bone milk? Good. This means you are among the living. Good. This means your heart is yours. Do not drink from the glass left next to the bed overnight. Do not drink from the glass of the unknown. Find fresh water. Find fresh water. Become fresh water. Pour into yourself. On the fourth day, when you wake, leave grief asleep if you can. If grief is already sitting upright on top of the duvet covers next to your closet, on the nightstand, against the crowded windowsill, call it by the name you've crowned it. Grief will watch you make the bed and fluff the pillows with lavender oil. Invite grief for a walk, reminded with a whisper, we all need fresh air. You and grief move soundless beneath the sun. You climb the stairs, past the puddles of dew and undisturbed waste. You and grief walk side by side, hands not touching, but feather wisp close. The light tips is full cup everywhere.
This reading is entitled, "We're Still Living and Dying in the Slaveholders' Republic" by Ibram Kendi. Slaveholders' freedom to secede from Lincoln's house divided against itself, divided between the freedom to and from. Memminger was named the Confederate Secretary of the Treasury. Americans went to war. Americans are still waging this same war now over COVID-19. There is a war between those fighting to open America back up for the sake of individual freedom and those fighting to keep America closed for the sake of community freedom. The Civil War over the very meaning, the very utility of freedom. From the beginning of the American project, the powerful individual has been battling for his constitutional freedom to harm. And the vulnerable community has been battling for its constitutional freedom from harm. Both freedoms were inscribed into the US Constitution, into the American psyche. The history of the United States, the history of Americans, is the history of reconciling the unreconcilable, individual freedom and community freedom. There is no way to reconcile the enduring psyche of the slaveholder with the enduring psyche of the enslaved. Slaveholders hardly seemed to care that secession was going to condemn the non-slave holding Southern community to war, to mass injuries, deaths on battlefields, and in contraband camps. Slaveholders hardly seemed to care that the Confederate States would have been a veritable hell for poor non-slave-holding whites, and the hell of hell for enslaved Black people. Too many Americans today hardly seem to care that withdrawing states from stay-at-home orders too soon would scarcely free their communities from the viral war, from mass infections and deaths on hospital beds and bedroom beds. Veritable disaster for innumerable white Americans and a disaster of disasters for innumerable Americans of color. Slaveholders could have responded to apocalyptic anti-slavery resistance by abolishing slavery and redistributing land and rights and resources to Black and white and indigenous peoples, all alike. Likewise, Trump could have responded by too deepening economic pain from stay-at-home orders, by imploring Congress to provide enough public assistance that the people ride out the pandemic in their homes or outside homes as essential workers were thoroughly protected. But then and now, not all Americans value communal freedom. They do not see them, do not talk to them, do not make deals for them. We take our offering. Our offering allows us to gather to fight for our freedoms, all of our freedoms, to be together, to thrive as individuals, to make the world a better place. We take our offering on this day when we celebrate the care that mothers give to all.
So I've been slowly working my way through calling all of you. I'm on P right now. The calls have been taking longer recently. Now, it's possible that the back half of the alphabet is just inherently more chatty and maybe feeling emotions more, but I think it's got to do with where we are right now. When I started calling 2 months ago, most conversations lasted about 10 minutes. Most of them were logistical, data-driven, comparing notes on how to get groceries when the church was opening, things like that. But right now I'm hearing a deeper struggle, one of loneliness, overstress, existential things. That is to say, when I call you now, there is something in your voice that is different from when the lockdown started. And my assessment, I've been mentally preparing for us getting this virus under control, at least come summertime, at the very latest. I've been mentally prepared to be back to normal in June, and at the latest, and then maybe another stay-at-home order happening in the fall. So last week I listened to an interview with Donald McNeil. He's a health reporter for the New York Times. He specializes in infections and pandemics. He said he doesn't see anything getting back to normal for at least 2 years. And this interview was really hard for me. It took about 24 hours. I mean, I couldn't get it out of my head. And it's the most hopeless I've felt since this whole thing started. And I'm sharing it with you because I think we need to be honest about our struggles. And I want you to be careful if you feel like you're on the edge right now. There's hope in this service. We're going to get to that in a little later. He said that if we are fully social distancing, and by that he means entire regions agreeing on shutdowns, which we aren't, and we are at full testing capacity. One Harvard study said we needed to do 5 million tests a day, and we've done 8 million total over this country. He said that if we are doing all of that, we could open back up, knowing that there would need to be periodic shutdowns whenever the virus sparked back up. He said that if we had all of that in place, there would still be no church, no concerts, no sporting events until the vaccine comes out. And if we did those things that we aren't doing, there would be substantially less death and would at least be able to get out and go do things. He said that things will not get back to normal until we have a vaccine. And while vaccine producers are optimistic, he said that's the maximum optimism they have is 18 months to 2 years. So until that, we have to get used to this, and then even possibly after that, a new normal. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch, but since it's Mother's Day, I wanted to spend some time talking about this new normal and specifically to envision what a better new normal could be. Before we can talk about the better, we have to talk about the current normal. Normal is this week, our legislature, during a pandemic, voted down requiring employers to give their employees health coverage. That makes the virus spread more, and it makes more people sick, and it hurts all of us. The current normal is referenced in that piece earlier, and it points to an answer that I see. In it, Kendi says, there's a fundamental paradox within the American psyche, the battle between the freedom to and the freedom from. Essentially, there's a debate between, and he pulls parallels between slavery and the COVID response, the freedom to keep your business open at the expense of public good, and the freedom from being infected, or the freedom from getting cancer, or the freedom from systemic abuse. And while there's a whole sermon on this concept, what it means for today is that it makes sense that many people are aligning themselves with the freedom to. That is how the state was founded and will continue to be that way for a long time. There was always the enticement for white people to align themselves at the threat of violence with the enslaver rather than the enslaved. The current normal is that our social safety net is so lackluster. I think many white people know their best chance for survival here is to side with the freedom to, and to align with business that hopes that a job will at least be enough to save them from falling through this tattered social safety net. But there was something that got me thinking, and it's something that Together Louisiana is currently working on. And it's going to be reflected in a piece that I'm going to continue with the Donald McNeil, that Joel will read in a minute. I have been so focused on this idea of the new normal just being everything I'm losing. No football, no Mardi Gras, no church, all of that. But what if the new normal were a better new normal. At the end of a very hard interview with Mr. McNeil, they asked him what made him hopeful, and I really liked his answer.
These are the words from Donald McNeil. I hope that a lot of things will change for the better. I mean, this is like going through a war. We went through World War I and World War II, and after those years, we created the League of Nations and the United Nations. We saw we were all in this together. Our attitudes had changed after those wars. Connections were strengthened. Income taxes became more levels. People had it with war profiteers. Taxes on the rich went up. We had the GI Bill and the Veterans Administration, mortgages. In Europe, the widows and orphans pension funds led to the creation of the now famous European social safety net. The wars were equalizing events. I'm hoping that something like that will happen again in this country. I'm hoping that we will have a rosy outcome from this and that we will value life more. In Wuhan, people came out after 2 months in hiding, and they said, the flowers are so beautiful. I'd never really noticed before. I hope people will take more pleasure in the simple things in life and feel lucky they got through this. I'm hoping we have a brighter dawn, even though we're going to go through some pain first.
So I've got a choice right now. I'm going to relate it to jelly beans, so stick with me. For Mother's Day, I'm going to overlay parenting in this pandemic. There's 3 pieces: life before, current, or the chaos, and the new normal. I had a life before kids. It was a good life, certainly less complicated. Right after birth, it's mostly just been dealing with the upheaval. And I'm at the cusp of that point where things have settled into a new normal. But before I did a lot of things, that were just for me. For example, my preference is to eat dessert with my meals. I don't talk about this much, but it's true. I like to use the sweet to break up the savory. I've always been like this, but I'm not sure I want that for my kids. Right now, we'll just talk about candy that's in my cabinet, so jelly beans. Actually, I almost brought them, but all that's left are the licorice ones, and no one likes those. That was in what will likely be a strained metaphor, so please just stick with me. That was life before coronavirus. We all had our habits and our cultures. Some were good, some were bad, some were neither. I have the way I've always eaten, which includes a stash of junk food so that I can have my dessert of choice with each meal. Right now, we are in the event state or the chaos state of the pandemic. And it's right now sort of where I am with the kids. I can still have the jelly beans, and if I'm tricky, I can get away with it. I can get away with the status quo, but it's getting harder. Recently, my son has seen me eating them, and he asked what they are. And I have a choice. I can lie to him, which will only last so long. I can keep going with the old normal and eat a thing that I enjoy or is comfortable or whatever, but is not necessarily healthy. I can share it with him and spread this habit that is unhealthy. Or I can go back to the old normal, knowing it may cause more harm, or I can embrace a new, better normal. I can stop buying them and have a healthier kid and a healthier life. Or if we want to zoom out on this weak metaphor and make it a little more meta, I have to examine which parts of our cultural message about foods and purity and health and body image I want to pass on to my kids and which I want to let go of. There is the what was, the chaos and the event, and then the new normal that I have a choice to make better. I've mostly been stuck in anxiety and grief about the whole pandemic. I miss you. I miss my family. I miss the things that make me comfortable and happy. I've been so lost in that I haven't been able to see beyond it. Whenever I do glance over the ledge, most of what I hear is about what we're going to lose in this new normal. But what if this church starts thinking about a better new normal? Don't give up on your grief and worry. Let it walk side by side, hands not touching, but feather wisp close. Let's be strategic about it. You don't need everyone to change the world. The trim tab on a boat only needs a small amount of force to shift the rudder, which shifts the entire boat. And this church is connected enough, and this religion has enough members with positions of power and authority that we can change the direction of this boat. Everything is changing right now. We can demand a world where justice, respect, and love are at its epicenter. Start demanding a better work-life balance from your employee. If you were in a position of power, advocate for better vacation and sick leave policies. If you can, advocate for a more comprehensive and better funded school system. Demand for infrastructure that isn't dependent on a petrochemical industry. Demand an infrastructure that does not imprison people for minor offenses and actually looks at rehabilitation in a way that doesn't destroy families and neighborhoods and entire groups of people in this country. Let's let this pandemic finally kill this rotten and corrupt fake partisan divide. You can do that by not getting too arrogant if you see people being hurt by harmful manifestations of these ideologies, and instead being a loving but firm landing spot when they're injured to come to. Let's build a better new normal where justice is accessible to everyone, where public defenders aren't required to be paid a very small amount based on court fees. They're funded as well, if not better, than every other position that a lawyer could have. Where communities and freedom from is the priority, not freedom to. Let's build a world that finally demolishes poverty. The opportunity is here, and we have to be smart and strategic with it and how we advocate. This new, better normal can be more compassionate, more forgiving, more loving, if we model more compassion, more forgiveness, and more love. It can be guided by us right now. We can do the work that Together Baton Rouge and Together Louisiana is doing. We can be models for it. Actually, you can call your legislators right now. There are bills right now that are taking testimonies by email that are due by noon today, if you're watching this on YouTube, that passed. But there's others. And these are bills that are trying to take away your money and to give it to industries that are not going to provide us the world we deserve. Go to Together Baton Rouge website to see more about this. Right now, we have the power, and there are numerous opportunities to build a new and better world. We can make this world better amidst trauma and tragedy. We can do it with love and compassion at our center. We can build a world with our children, build a world for our children that we deserved before we were born. Let's make it happen. Amen. We're going to reprise that anthem. So I invite you to sing along. Glad you're with us today. Go in peace. Go in love. Today is the day that we can bring about a new, better world. I love you. I'm glad we're together. Amen.